you to my mystery announcer. It's great to be in Edinburgh. I'm not visiting, I just really like where I live. Because it's kind of, Edinburgh, you know, it can be a bit miserable, but in August it suddenly gets really exciting, but I actually think that Edinburgh in August is a bit dangerous. I mean, relax, any tourists in, don't worry, I don't mean for, it's a really safe city. What I mean is more for the risk of a heart attack, which is something I think about a lot, given my age, weight, and genetic inheritance. Because any other time of the year, if you're rolling about on the pavement and clutching your chest and screaming, somebody will get you an ambulance. You're ahead of me. But in August, they're going to get you an audience. £4.32 in small change and a 3-star review in the Scotsman. It's just terrible. But no, thank you so much for coming. I will warn you, this room does get a little bit hot. The windows are open. There's a fan here I can turn up to Heathrow level if you want, if you're getting too hot. The only slight problem with the window being open is you might get a bit of extraneous noise. You can hear the beer there. It's not so bad. Saturday was the worst time because I had to compete with an Orange Order march. Exactly, I think we're loud. I was kind of surprised actually an Orange Order march can find their way through the twisty streets of Edinburgh. Because there's no turning! But welcome, come in, the borders are open. There's a seat, 2 seats down the front here if you want to come and have a seat. Don't worry, I can pick on people at the back of the room, it doesn't matter. No, and I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you are thinking, for heaven's sake, the milk tray man's let himself go. Oh, what a great audience. This is my little audience tester to see who's of my kind of generation can do it. For any of the foreigners or people looking a bit blank or anybody young, I'll just explain what it is. It's an advertisement from the 1970s. You can find it on YouTube actually. And it's basically selling cheap chocolate, Cadbury's milk tray, which smells of late night garages and desperation. And there's a guy who looks a bit like me, sort of all dressed in black, but with hair. Life is harsh. But it looks like a cheap James Bond, and he's selling these cheap chocolates, basically, by breaking into single women's bedrooms at night. Nothing creepy about that whatsoever. But it does tell you everything you need to know about what was acceptable in the 1970s. So I'd like to thank you all for coming to our political show at 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, great, this is fun. I always get the most sober audience, it's brilliant. But I think it's fantastic because the official, come in, the borders are open, there's a seat at the front here, I think, a couple of seats in the back dark corner, wherever you want. There's one here by a very nice looking gentleman. Don't know if you've been called that before. I'm going to turn that up actually. If that gets too cold, let me know. But no, I thank you so much because the official the official festival refused to have anything to do with the referendum, which I think is pretty shocking really. Yeah, they thought, oh no, we can't involve politics. Even though this is potentially the single biggest constitutional change that's happened to the United Kingdom since a small matter in 1776. If you ignore Indian independence. But no, I see, and I find this funny because also, I mean, you know, the American Revolution was inspired by the Scottish Enlightenment. And I was a bit annoyed with Obama when he goes, you know, his own thing is like, you know, can we do it? Yes, we can. Can Scotland do it? Not really. It's a bit hypocritical. So, but the thing is, this is a comedy show. I'm not giving you any answers. You know, it's not a debate. If I can stimulate thought and debate, that's great. So long as you do it somewhere else, that's absolutely brilliant. And this is just one man's views. Okay, so it might well be petty and ill-informed. Yeah, so you won't know any different from the real debate. That's fantastic. So you might be thinking, why me? Why am I up here on stage? Well, the main reason is I'm somebody who spent £350 getting my name in the Fringe brochure. So now you know the exact cost of free speech. But perhaps more importantly, I worked for the Scottish Government for 15 years, but I no longer work for them, so I feel I'm able to talk about it. I get a wee bit of insight, but I can talk about it. And the reason I left in 2011 at the repackage, but that's my personal problem. I left because they were talking about changing our final salary pension to career average pensions, which I think they're doing for the wider public sector now. But they haven't told you about this, there's a few no English. This is actually George Osborne's secret plan. The career they're thinking of is North Korea. It's going to solve an awful lot of problems there. And what I did, when I worked in the government, one of the things I worked on was something called the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation. You can look it up, it's a kind of a map. Basically it's a map of the deprived area. It's a map of the areas you should avoid. Sad but true. And I used to worry about that because I thought, what does a wee middle-class man from Edinburgh know about multiple deprivation? In Edinburgh, multiple deprivation is when Waitrose runs out of hummus and olives on the same day. And then I realized, I do know what deprivation looks like. A deprived area is a place where people have got more dogs than teeth. Again, just observation. And the other thing I did, I worked in a variety of areas, but I did work in the fisheries, and I am personally responsible for putting through a piece of legislation called the Salmon Conservation Act 2002. And he loved it. He said, you've not quite spelled it right, you're missing the T. For anybody who doesn't know, and I imagine there aren't actually, but Alex Salmond is the only politician we have in Scotland, because the rest are faceless and no name, leader of the Scottish National Party, the current First Minister. Now, the one thing you will find in this debate, there's going to be a lot of statistics, not in my show, there'll be a couple, but the debate will see a lot of statistics. But I would caution scepticism about any figures, because I'm of the view that if you torture data enough, it's going to confess to anything. You know, waterboarding numbers, it's been done. So, but I will just share with you my favourite statistic. It's nothing to do with the referendum, I just really, really like it. And it must be true, because I read it on Twitter. But apparently, 10% of all European babies are now conceived in an IKEA bed. Bloody strong bed. I just hope they change the sheets once in a while, I don't know. Yeah, and the other thing about me is why am I up here? Well, I actually think, see, I'm genuinely British. You see, I'm half Scottish, half English, half Welsh, rubbish at arithmetic. And the thing is, I was born in Scotland, I've lived here most of my life, but my mum's from London and my dad's from Wales, you see. And I think that gives me a bit of an insight into all the possible angles of the referendum, because you've got the aye, no. And to be honest, I ain't got nothing for me to shun. So, and of course that's a terrible stereotype, because there's a lot of Scottish people who would be considering voting no, and there's a lot of English people who live here who are voting who might be voting yes. There's actually a Facebook group called English Voters for Independence, and when you go onto it, there's a suggested Facebook group, English Turkeys for Christmas. And I was actually called up on the first day. Somebody said, oh, you've just been stereotyping there because you've made all English people sound like they have a posh accent. I'd just like to make it clear that that now was actually an upper-class Scottish accent. Anybody who lives here knows that the people who speak like that, oh yes, we've been here 700 years and we know Robert the Bruce, don't you know? So now, if you go to other shows, you might get asked which way you're voting, but I don't ask whether you're yes or no, because that's a bit personal. It's between the privacy of you and the voting booth. It's a bit like asking somebody their age or their weight. But what I will ask, if you don't mind, is who's got a vote? If you can maybe just a wee show of hands, who's got a vote in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. Gosh, you're outnumbered. If I can just have a rough check on the rest of the room, I'm guessing quite a lot of the rest are from the UK, is that right? Yeah, oh, this is great, it's like school now. And out of that, do any of you have Scottish connections, or are you just interested? Oh, that's because there's quite a lot of people who have Scottish connections, quite a lot, about half and half, who are just interested. And then are there people from beyond the UK? Where are you from?
The US.
The US, cool, excellent. I always get in Maryland, very welcome.
Well, I'm English, but I live in France.
Live in France, oh wow, very good. I got a very good French review apparently on a blog, so. Said he was très drôle et informatif. So that's fantastic. Now, I don't know if you know this, but basically the vote is not about your heritage and where you come from. The vote is if you actually live in Scotland, normally live in Scotland, and you're either a UK citizen, an EU citizen, or a Commonwealth citizen. So, sorry, Americans, you can't get one. If there were any Australians in the room, potentially, you know, they've got till the 2nd of September to vote, and I'm really sorry for the diaspora, but, you know, you left. But I think that's actually quite good, because, you see, it's not about bloodline, and it's not about, you know, because genetically speaking, that makes no difference. I mean, that sounds mad, because the only difference in terms of genetics between being English and Scottish is which particular Vikings raped your ancestors. Ooh, too close to the bone. Is it too soon? And the other thing as well, I guess, you know, when I was thinking about doing the show, I was a bit worried, because is it about nationalism? And I have this really good German friend called Paco Erhardt. I'd recommend going to see his show. It's called Worst German Ever. He says because he's disorganized, so that's his stereotype. But he started his show last year by saying, yeah, I think we can all agree that nationalism is a very, very bad thing. And I don't know what response he got anywhere else in the country, but in Edinburgh people just went, it's not that bad. Alexander's got a bit of an ego, but it's not that. And then I realised, Paco's German. And of course nationalism means quite a lot different in Germany. It's the kind of thing the last tried in the 1930s to kind of mixed results. And I think that's the important thing. It's not that kind of nationalism. This debate is not about that. It's not that kind of, you know, insecure, we're better than you, we're going to build a wall. We leave that to UKIP. It's much more about self-reliance and maybe self-confidence, I don't know. And the other thing is, some people have said, you know, this is maybe a bit anti-English. And I don't think it is. I mean, there's obviously going to be a few idiots because they're everywhere in the world. But I think there's two things. One, I think we're very pedantic because quite a lot of English people get mixed up and think that England and Britain are the same thing, and we get a bit chippy about that. But that's not anti-English, that's just anti-not knowing, which is fair. But I think the other thing as well is it's not that we're anti-English, we're anti-wanker. And in particular, when we had Nigel Farage, because it rhymes with garage, he was up last year, and there were a lot of people saying, "Go away, you horrible man with your little xenophobic policies and posters and all that." And he said, "Ew, why don't you like me? Is it because I'm English?" "No, it's because you're a twat." Hey, it's